Okay, we're recording. Thank you everyone for making it. I am going to see if I can mute everyone. Okay, everyone should be muted. We will have time for questions at the end, so if you can ask any questions at that point, we'll have time for that. Start by sharing my screen. Okay. Welcome everyone to the 2023 COC competition information session. This is the overview for Baltimore County for the COC funds. This is for anyone who is looking to get more information about this year's Continuum of Care Notice of Funding Opportunity, the NOFO that HUD put out, and the process between now and the end of September for applying for funds with that. There we go. As I said a moment ago, the meeting is being recorded. All slides and the meeting recording will be available later today, so you can check back for reference. For the information itself, HUD is going to be awarding approximately $3.1 billion through the fiscal year 2023 COC competition nationally. We, as Baltimore County, are eligible for up to $2,800,048,670. We are eligible to apply for $311,797 for COC bonus project. We're eligible for $445,425 for a DV bonus project. And we're eligible for $222,712 for our COC planning project. COCs are required to prioritize projects using a two-tiered system. I'll have more to say on that later on in the slides, but just to give information about the numbers here, Tier 1 is equal to 93% of the combined annual renewal demand, the ARD, for all projects that are eligible for renewal. So with our roughly $2.8 million, 93% of that is $2,649,263 for Tier 1. Tier 2 is the difference between Tier 1 and the COC's ARD, plus the COC bonus projects. So I won't list out all of the math there with the subtracting and the adding, but it adds up to $956,629 for Tier 2. All renewal and new projects are ranked together. The planning grant is not part of the rating and ranking review process. I have a link here that, again, the slides will be available later this afternoon that you can click the link. That takes you to HUD and their competition page. So you can see they've got any documents that are referenced throughout the presentation today. Lots of helpful information there. There's more information than we can go over in the allotted time today. So for more details, you can find the information there. And at the end, we've got more helpful links as well. So what's new this year? The COC planning has increased to 5% of the applicable final pro rata need, so the FPRN. It was previously 3%, so they've raised that by 2. There is an expanded definition of homelessness. The changed portions are bolded here, but it is anyone who is experiencing trauma or lack of safety related to or fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, or other dangerous, traumatic, or life-threatening conditions related to the violence against the individual or family member in the individual's or family's current housing situation, including where the health and safety of children are jeopardized. Deep breath. where the person has no other safe residence and lacks resources to obtain other safe permanent housing. So again, the bolded portions there related to trauma, lack of safety, and violence against the individual or family members is the new portion that has been expanded since last year. There are also additional eligible expenses through the Violence Against Women Act, which is new this year. There's more details related to that on the actual NOFO itself. This year, HUD has 9 policy priorities that we'll go through each of them here. They are priorities that throughout the project application, whether you're new or renewal projects, you should be highlighting how the work that you're doing lines up with these policy priorities that HUD has laid out. The first of them being ending homelessness for all persons. This one is hopefully not a surprise to anyone. We are here to get people housed, to end homelessness, all the things listed earlier. It's an obviously traumatic experience that we want to not have in Baltimore County to the extent possible. As part of this, HUD is pursuing 2 overarching goals related to increasing equity throughout programs and improving customer experiences across HUD programs. So, COC should identify, engage, and effectively serve all persons experiencing homelessness. COC should measure their performance based on the local data that is considered that considers the challenges faced by all subpopulations. COC should be partnering with housing, healthcare, and supportive services providers to expand housing options such as permanent supportive housing, housing subsidies, and rapid rehousing. There's also more information in a couple slides about partnering with other providers. And COC should use local data to determine the characteristics of individuals and families with the highest needs and longest experiences of homelessness to develop housing and supportive services tailored to their needs. HUD is also prioritizing using a housing first approach. So this prioritizes rapid placement and stabilization in permanent housing. Housing is not to be dependent on service participation or to have any other preconditions. As part of this, we should develop a landlord recruitment and retention strategy so that as folks are being referred to landlords, we have landlords who are on board with housing first as well. One of the metrics that's used to evaluate the housing first approach is the length of time that people experience homelessness in projects. HUD is also prioritizing reducing unsheltered homelessness. So we should be looking for resources to provide permanent housing for unsheltered homeless individuals. We should be working with law enforcement and local government officials to eliminate policies that criminalize homelessness. And HUD is looking for improving system performance. So all renewal and new projects should be evaluated based on how they work to either support or how they hinder overall system performance measures. So those are things like exits to permanent housing, returns to homelessness, reducing the length of time homeless, and increasing income for program participants. They're also looking at effective use of coordinated entry, which includes things like promoting participant choice, coordinating homeless assistance and mainstream housing, making homeless assistance open, inclusive, and transparent, which some of that we have started to address with all of the changes that we made in the coordinated entry process starting in late June. So making that more prioritizing folks who are have the highest vulnerability, being open about that process. HUD has increased the points available for improving system performance. Renewal projects are evaluated on their effectiveness in serving people and their cost effectiveness. This is more information on partnering with housing, health, and service agencies. COCs are expected to leverage other available resources and funding outside of the COC and emergency service grants to pay for both housing and services. There should be close partnerships with public and private health agencies to analyze data and design approaches to reduce homelessness, to improve the health of individuals experiencing homelessness and prevent disease outbreaks. Partnering with public housing authorities to utilize coordinated entry to develop housing units and provide subsidies to people experiencing homelessness. We're also looking for partnerships with workforce development to improve employment opportunities. That goes back to the previous slide where one of those system performance measures, the metrics is improving income. If you can show that you're working with workforce development to improve employment opportunities, that is a good way to demonstrate that metric. They are also looking for ways that you're addressing racial equity. In nearly every community, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color are substantially overrepresented in the homeless population. HUD is emphasizing system and program changes to address racial equity within COCs. So projects should have policies that address racial disparities. We're also looking to see improving assistance to LGBTQ plus individuals. So that's COCs addressing the needs of LGBTQ plus individuals and families in their planning processes. COCs should partner with LGBTQ plus serving organizations and should ensure the rights of LGBTQ plus individuals, that those rights are protected in all programs. HUD is placing a priority on incorporating people with lived experience throughout all aspects of the planning, of program design, of policy development. So that's at the larger COC level, and that's also something they're looking at on the project level as well. So COC leaders and stakeholders should prioritize hiring people with lived experience where their expertise is needed. And finally, the last of the 9 policy priorities is increasing the affordable housing supply. The NOFO awards points for taking steps to engage local leaders regarding increasing the affordable housing supply. COC should be communicating with jurisdiction leaders and elected officials on the importance of increasing the supply of affordable housing. As I assume everyone on this call is aware, there's not nearly enough of it in Baltimore County. The harmful effects of the lack of affordable housing. So again, the fact that there's not affordable housing means that we're going to expect to see homelessness, and the need for the reform zoning and land use to reform to increase the supply of affordable housing. Okay, so those are all of the priorities that HUD has set for what they're looking for in projects as a COC as a whole, which leads us to the scoring criteria. So as I said earlier, I'm not going to repeat all of the numbers here, but tier 1 is equal to 93% of the ARD for projects that are eligible for renewal, which puts us at roughly 2.6 million. And tier 2 is the difference between tier 1 and the COC's ARD, as well as the amounts available for COC bonus projects, so roughly 956,000. So HUD will be awarding a point value for each new and renewal project application that is in tier 2 using a 100-point scale. The COC score, so how we do on the overall application, in direct proportion to that, projects will receive up to 50 points. The COC project ranking, so for up to 40 points, tier 2 projects will receive points based on the ranking of their projects. And for up to 10 points, demonstrated commitment to housing first. So what we talked about a couple slides earlier, showing that the program is low barrier, that it prioritizes rapid placement into housing. For renewal projects, project applications are eligible for renewal if their current grant term expires during the calendar year 2023. All renewals are for a 1-year term. All applicants should closely review the renewal project detailed instructions, the instructional guidelines, and funding announcements to assure that applications are completed correctly. And this says for renewal projects, but this goes for new projects as well. Again, in that link that is in the first slide, the overview slide, there on that web page, you'll find instructions for new projects as well. Applications, like I was saying earlier, should reference the HUD priorities to show that your project is matching up with what the HUD policy priorities are. Renewal project requests will be evaluated both on the applicant's past COC performance and on the renewal application itself. The COC bonus projects, the total funds available there are about $311,000. We're accepting expansion applications to increase the number of units, the number of persons served, or services provided. More information on expansion projects can be found on page 50 of the NOFO, but to quickly summarize, projects that are expanding their current COC program funded projects must submit both a renewal project application for the project that will be expanded and a new project application with the expansion information. The eligibility, they must meet the eligibility and project quality thresholds outlined in the HUD NOFO. For an opportunity for leveraging more points, you have the option to show that you're leveraging healthcare resources. So an amount that is equivalent to 25% of the funding being requested for the project to be covered by a healthcare organization. Bonus funds increase funds to the overall COC, and they are tied to the overall COC NOFO score. We've got DV bonus projects, total funds available there, roughly $445,000. DV bonus project applications must pass project eligibility and quality threshold. DV bonus funds are based on the COC application score, how the COC collaborates with victim service providers, the need for the project, and how the project will incorporate survivors with lived experience in the policy and program development. So again, going back to that persons with lived experience piece of the HUD policy priorities, that is something that HUD is really emphasizing this year. They want to see at kind of all levels that folks are incorporated into the decision-making process. For DV bonus applications that propose expansion, if the DV bonus application does not meet the above requirements for an expansion project, or the renewal portion is not selected, HUD will consider the DV bonus application as a standalone project. For rating and ranking, all new and renewal projects will be reviewed and ranked by the COC Rating and Ranking Committee. All projects will be assessed using a standard scoring tool. We're currently developing the rubric. Once that is developed, that tool will be updated and posted online to the Baltimore County website. We will require answers to supplemental questions. These are going to be questions about housing first, incorporating people with lived experience into the decision-making process, addressing racial equity, and addressing the needs of the LGBTQ+ community. We are also still looking for 2 to 3 more volunteers for the Rating and Ranking Committee. We're particularly looking for anyone with lived experience to join that committee. For the Rating and Ranking Committee, we need you to, if you're on the call but not applying for funds, you can join the Rating and Ranking Committee. If you are applying for funds, that's obviously a conflict of interest, so we obviously appreciate your time, but we can't have you on the committee. And then there's a few dates that you need to be able to attend. There will be a meeting to go over the rating and ranking process, either next Thursday or Friday. That'll be finalized soon. That'll be about an hour-long meeting. And then from late August up to September 7th, you need to be available to review and score hopefully about 3, depends on how many people we end up getting, but hopefully about 3 projects. And then on September 8th, we need you to be available for about a 2-hour meeting to discuss the scoring itself. If all of that lines up, feel free to shoot me an email, and I can talk through any other questions that you have about the process. The HUD requires a matching requirement. So all projects, both new and renewal, must meet the match requirement in order to be eligible. HUD requires a minimum of a 25% match on all grant funds, except for leasing costs. The match requirement can be met by either in-kind or cash. Any cash or in-kind funds used towards the match must be used to support eligible activities under the grant. And rents and occupancy charges collected from the participants are considered program income and can be used as match towards that match requirement. Okay, so for some next steps and deadlines, I need to hear from anyone who is planning to apply for funds by next Tuesday, the 15th at noon. So this applies to new providers and renewal projects. I just need an email from you that you intend to apply for the COC funds. Nothing fancy, just let me know. And when I stop sharing my screen, I'll put my email address in the chat, just to make sure that everyone has it. Everyone should, but just in case, I want to make sure that you've got it. And then by Friday, August 25th at noon, all new and renewal project applications must be completed in eSnaps. This includes both the project application and the supplemental addendum questions. And please do not submit via eSnaps until you are notified. If you need to request access to eSnaps, we've got the link here that will take you to the HUD Exchange eSnaps page, where they have more information about eSnaps in general. And from there, you can set up an eSnaps account. I will say, being relatively new to this process and acquainting myself with eSnaps, it's taken some time. It's a bit of a, it's not as user-friendly as I would like. So if you're also new to eSnaps, take some time to get yourself acquainted with it and get signed up with eSnaps so that you can get yourself acquainted with it. Getting back to the dates, then from August 29th, so like I said, late August, I forgot the exact date, but from August 29th through to September 7th, the Rating and Ranking Committee will be scoring all of the completed project applications, and that will be done by Thursday the 7th. And then on Friday, September 8th, the Rating and Ranking Committee will meet to discuss all of the scoring, and providers will be notified whether they were, where they ranked on the list and whether they were accepted. All approved providers must submit final applications in eSnaps. Then on September 20th, the consolidated application draft will be completed and submitted to the COC Governance Board for their review and for a vote. Then on Thursday, September the 21st, the consolidated application will be posted on the Baltimore County website for review. And on the 26th, we will submit the final COC NOFO application to HUD. We are planning on getting it's due on the 28th. We're planning on getting it in on the 26th, so that way, if eSnaps crashes, as I've been told that it does from time to time, we are giving ourselves breathing room so that we can make sure that it is submitted well before the deadline without any issues. And this is taken from the National Alliance to End Homelessness from the presentation that they did last week. But a few do's and do not do's for the COC program competition. I think they wrote this kind of from the broader COC perspective, but a lot of it works for the projects as well. So do start with the end in mind. Envision the projects that you want funded and how they contribute to the system performance, what performance you want to achieve, and then work towards that end goal in mind. Reflect on your project before you get started. Identify the weakest and the strongest parts of your project, and consider how your projects can benefit the system as a whole. Again, those system performance measures are something that the projects and the COC as a whole is graded on. Review your data to determine what your outcomes are so that you can speak to that. I know Joe's been having the data committee up and running for a few months now, so hopefully everyone is familiar with your data. If you have any questions about it, feel free to reach out to us. We can make sure that you are able to pull your data, that you're familiar with it, so that you can submit your best application. Read through the NOFO. It's a fairly long document, but it has, as I said, more details than I can go into here today. And it is able to spell out what the priorities are, what the all the information that they're looking for as a that HUD is looking for here. And as we reviewed in the middle portion of the presentation here, look at HUD's priorities for this year. Look at the ways that you are running your projects now, and see if there's ways that you can, either ways that your projects are already matching up with HUD's priorities, or ways that you can incorporate changes to match up what you're doing with what HUD's priorities are for projects to be doing. For the Consulting the System series, on the next slide here, we've got some helpful links, and that one's on there. As blog posts, webinars. I believe that's where they've posted the National Alliance to End Homelessness presentation from last week that goes over a lot of this information as well. And then for some things not to do, don't jump into the application before you've had time to prepare. Again, a lot of this is kind of the flip side of the things that you should do. So if you're not familiar with your data, don't jump into the application and start answering questions with guessing at what your performance is actually looking like. Don't assume that what you're doing is working as well as it possibly can. So again, looking at HUD's priorities, what they're looking for, and what changes you might need to implement to be in compliance with what their priorities are. Don't plan to apply for funding if you're not sure how well your programs are running. So again, just being familiar with your programs and your outcomes. Don't presume things were the same as last year. We went over some of the changes, but again, looking through the NOFO and being familiar with it so that you can know what HUD is specifically asking for this year. And don't assume that what you have been doing is in line with the changes that HUD has put into place this year. And finally, don't panic. The National Alliance to End Homelessness is here to help. The homeless services team at the county is here to help. We can't write anyone's application for you, but we want everyone to put forward the best application that they can. So if you have clarifying questions, things that we can help with, we want to be able to make sure that everyone is putting forward the best application that they possibly can. And like I referenced, here are some helpful links for the NOFO. So again, the HUD competition page that I've been referencing a few times here has all of the documents about the detailed instructions, the NOFO itself. So this is a place to find all of that information directly from HUD. The second link is the system series from the National Alliance to End Homelessness. So kind of the National Alliance taking all of that direct HUD speak and language and digesting it a bit so that it's a little bit more understandable without giving you a headache. And then Also, more specifically from the National Alliance, they've got a blog post on what matters in the 2023 NOFO that summarizes a lot of the information from their presentation as well as from this presentation. And again, the slides here will be made available later this afternoon, so you can actually click on these links. And that is all of the prepared presentation. So if everyone wants to take a collective deep breath, we can now take any questions that you have.
Karen, it's Nikki from Prologue.
Hi.
So in eSnaps, will you all be pushing our applications forward, or do we go in and do that on our own?
So when you say push the application forward, do you mean like actually submitting it, or you mean like the information from last year having that be?
Yeah, the information from last year. So the projects, have to get set up for this, moving into this application, and we can push last year's information forward and then edit it. And I think last year was the first year that we did that. I think providers did that on their own. And I'm just wondering if that'll be the case this year.
To the best of my knowledge, that is the case again this year. I can find out more definitively and include that in an email that has the summarized information.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And let me put my email address in the chat before I forget. It looks like there were a couple of questions in the chat, so let me go through those. Will this be recorded? Yes, the meeting is being recorded, and it will be available later this afternoon. I see Justin answered that. Thank you. See. Okay, yeah, so it seems like some of these questions have been answered. This is the webinar about the Baltimore County local application. The best person to reach out to for any questions would be myself. I've got my email address in the chat now. It looked like Molly had her hand up.
Good morning, Karen and everybody. So since we do supportive services and are partnered with a number of the organizations who would be up for renewals, do you suggest that we apply individually? Or is it better to do with a partner, but as a standalone project? As ours is, a bit unusual. And we don't repeat HMIS information because client information is already in there.
Yeah, so to my understanding, you would still submit an individual project application because you would be applying for funding for your specific project.
There was discussion, though, about us going with one of our partners or going with a number of the partners since we provide the supportive services for those particular clients. And you don't think we should do that?
Again, to give the same answer to Nikki's question, I can look into that and give you a better answer with more detail in
Thank you.
A little bit.
Oops. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jason? Oh, you're still muted.
Through?
There we go. Yeah, I was able to unmute you.
Okay, very good. As a newcomer and as one who has had the lived experience, I I don't know the process for this to happen, but I certainly would like to be helpful to any applicant in terms of gaps that I have seen through the lived experience. So I don't know if it has to go through you first or not, but I'm certainly available to help those individuals who are applying to talk about and consider some gaps in what I have seen and what I have lived through.
Great.
Thank you.
Yep, on that.
Appreciate it. And I see a question in the chat. Is this for EFSP funding? This is for the HUD COC NOFO funding. Does anyone else have any questions? And like I said, if you have any questions that come up, we're here to help throughout the process. So this is not your last chance to ask questions. If, like me, as soon as a meeting closes, you realize what your question is, you've got my email address, feel free to send me an email. And I will either answer to the best of my ability, or I will tell you that I don't know and that I'll need to get back to you.
So Kieran, we're gonna all need to know whether you're gonna push the information forward on the applications and when they're open. So that's the next step for most of us.
Yep, and I addressed that with Nikki. Laura, I see your hand up.
Hi, yeah, so my question is if there's going to be any upcoming webinars specifically about the Baltimore County local application process, or if that needs to be something we reach out to you on a one-on-one basis to go through our specific questions.
When you said the local Baltimore County process, what do you mean?
Yeah, so as the, let's see, I don't know how to better explain that.
Gotcha. Yeah, because this is the presentation for the Baltimore County NOFO process.
Right, so you're saying there's no specifics that other than us putting it in D-snaps and waiting to make sure we hear from you about it getting pushed through. There's nothing else that's specific to Baltimore County that we need to consider.
So there will be the the supplemental questions for the application.
Okay.
To do with how you're incorporating person with lived experience, addressing the LGBTQ plus populations.
Gotcha. I was a little unclear
racial
about
disparities.
where that was landing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if, like I say, if anyone has any questions that come up, feel free to send me an email, or feel free to jump off mute and ask it right now. Otherwise, wish everyone well over the next 2 months as we work our way through this. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you and seeing your project applications. Thanks everyone for making the time today.
Thank you, Kieran.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, Karen.